Welcome to another edition of Up Close. My name is Tsapa Mutsugua. Up Close is a daily current affairs show that profiles men and women making waves in their industries and gives newsmakers a human face. The program also gives newsmakers a platform where they can share their stories and vision as we hope to inspire you, our viewer. So stay tuned with us for the next half hour as we get up close with business pioneer Sandile Zungu. By profession, Sandile Zungu is a mechanical engineer. He became the youngest person to chair parastatal Denel back in 2001 and since then has chaired many other companies in South Africa. After attaining a master's in business administration, he founded the Zungu Investment Company Limited, and his business profile grew exponentially to a multi-million rand portfolio. And today we have the privilege to get up close with Sandile Zungu. Sandile, thank you for making the time.
And thank you for having me here.
Sandile, we think we know you, but I'm going to ask you, who is Sandile Zungu?
Well, Sandile is a boy from Umlazi, Umlazi, Omshasha. I'm a person who loves himself, loves his family, and is a conscientious person who loves his people and his country. And is hardworking in business, and you ain't seen nothing yet about him.
Oh, wow, fantastic. That's interesting to hear. I like that. Let's go back to growing up in Umlazi. What was that experience like? Where did you go to school?
Well, Umlazi Township is arguably the second largest township in the country. So I grew up in an environment where there was a lot of warmth, there was a lot of community spirit. I went to a school at Mafuzela named after the founder of the ANC, John Langalibalele Dube. And the founder of Ilanga, Lasa Natal, and Uhlange school. From there, I went to a school at Umlazi again, called Mafumbuga, which was at the time higher primary. And then I completed my high school at Vuguzake High School, still at Umlazi. That's why I got a bursary to do engineering, but first I had to do post-matric at Hilton College, just outside of Pietermaritzburg. Yes.
What was that experience like, actually going from the township school and then doing your post-matric in a private school?
Well, you remember that was during the dark days of apartheid, 1984. So my first real contact with people other than African people was at Hilton College. So I suddenly was living with whites. I was going to class with whites. There was a lot of tension, inspired by our respective backgrounds. But we soon overcame that. We formed the bonds that exist up to now. It was a fantastic year, you know, a bridging year where really I transcended my terrible socio-economic background and got exposed to what I would call the first world, even by those standards. And I did that with aplomb, and I did UNISA first year science, just to prepare me for the following year. And I did exceptionally well even in the maths and science Olympiads. Came in the top 100 nationally, doing well against people who had a privileged academic background.
For 12 years while you were going to school in the townships. Give us some more background. I mean, what did, of your socioeconomic, specifically personal situation back then, what did your parents do? Could you afford things? Would we call you one of those early middle class African people or not?
You know, one day someone wrote in a caption below my picture, "From rags to riches." I objected very strongly because even though I came from a challenged socio-economic background, but I never went to bed in an empty stomach. So I could never describe my background as rags. My parents always made sure that we were well looked after, even on the basis of those modest earnings they had. My mother was a staff nurse at a local polyclinic. My father was a factory worker at the time Mobile Refinery, now Engine Refinery. They were working class, classical working class people. but who always made sure that they implant certain values in their kids, valuing education, valuing hard work, valuing being disciplined. And on the basis of those meager earnings, they took us to school. All of my siblings went to tertiary, technical and university, including myself. So, and the community I lived in valued a lot of great things in humanity, you know, caring for one another, looking after each other, like children of the village, and placing a great deal of value on the professionals like nurses, policemen, and women, as well as teachers. So I grew up in that society, in that community where serving was glorified, and I hope that it still is glorified.
We'll talk about that a little later, looking if things are still the same. But then when did it click for you that maths and science was where your passion lies, and how did you end up getting your scholarship to do post-matric?
Well, I always was gifted academically, you know, for as long as I can remember, from sub-A right up to matric. Never was I outside of the top 10, and in most cases I was the top student in class. And maths was always my passion, and sciences. So I knew that I had to pursue a career on the basis of those subjects. But I never knew about engineering. And at the time that I was doing matric, came Shell looking for students that they wanted to sponsor to do engineering and commerce. And because I was a top scholar, my principal chose me to say, go for those interviews. And I remember driving from Mlazi to Shell House in Durban. I was fetched by a gentleman called Zamani Jali, who I revere up to now. And he asked me, do you know anything about engineering? And I said, actually, I don't know anything. And then he coached me. There's chemical engineering, there's mechanical.
This is on the drive now to the interview.
On the drive towards Durban.
Yeah.
And on the car, we're listening to Nina Simone.
Oh, no.
And so I did very well on those interviews, and I found myself doing engineering. I did well. I completed my degree on the set time. And I was an accidental engineer.
Accidental engineer,
yes.
You say?
Otherwise, I would have chosen to be a teacher.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to unpack that a little bit more and find out. Back in 1995, you know, doing an MBA was quite a big deal.
Yes.
So we'll continue with that after the break. We would greatly appreciate any suggestions or comments you have about our show. Our Twitter handle is @Tsepi. Stay tuned with SABC News. You're watching SABC News, DSTV channel 404, and we continue to get up close with business pioneer Sandile Zungu. You say engineering was a mistake, or it was not meant to be. You wanted accident. You wanted to be a teacher. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, when I was doing matric,
Yeah.
I featured in the top 10 in the Science Olympiad in KwaZulu region, regional finals. And so we had a science week where we were taken to industry like ACI in Durban and various other manufacturing centers, including being taken through career guidance. And I remember going to Amanzi Mtoti College of Education, where I said I wanted to register to become a teacher the following year.
You wanted to teach science maths?
I wanted to teach because I had at the time appreciated that the only way out of the doldrums that we were in as a people, especially black people, was illiteracy, fighting illiteracy and raising the level of awareness, education among our people. So I thought I could be an agent for uplifting our people. So my level of consciousness was already very high at the time. So I took the forms, I registered to become become a teacher. I had been assured that I would be accepted because of my of my results.
And then Shell happened, so then that was history.
Shell happened, and I did well in those interviews, and the rest is history. I'm a mechanical engineer now.
Okay,
yes.
So then we fast forward to 1995. Why did you decide to do an MBA? I mean, I remember back then an MBA, very few people knew about it, and it was considered one of the most difficult post-grad degrees you could ever go into.
Well, for 6 years, I worked as an engineer for various RPM, engine refinery, national sorghum breweries, just to mention a few. And I discovered I'm not the best engineer. No, I did well. I was a studious fellow. I understood the concepts, but my heart is not in this field. So what must I do? I've used my background. I've earned, but I'm not highly motivated to stay here. And so I decided to go and study further. My initial interest was to do marketing, to major in marketing with my MBA, and then to move into marketing engineering products. At least there could be some kind of synergy. But when I got to UCT, what was really happening is that engineers were most sought after professionals for merchant banking. So the popular combination was manufacturing and finance, which gave you an in into the merchant banking world. And that's what I did. I did international marketing and international finance as my electives for MBA. And I was poached by Denel, who was establishing a merchant banking outfit called African Merchant Bank, to become a corporate finance executive there.
Would you agree that for some reason you always seem to be at the right place at the right time? I'm not talking about that. I'm not in any way saying that you're not a hard worker, but there seems to be that narrative happening in your life.
You are absolutely right. I attribute that to my deep faith. I always believe that there's a guardian angel up above who is leading me.
Because that's what I was going to ask you. That must be a lot of pressure. You find a lot of, I'll call them stars in whichever area or field that they're in. That experience of things just opening up for you just at the right time can be quite intimidating. You will need to be spiritually strong to be able to accept that invitation to move to the next level of your life.
It is true. I think what you need under those circumstances is, one, to have self-confidence, because there are many, not all lights are necessarily good lights. Not all of them are shining lights. So if you don't have self-confidence and you're not clear about where ultimately you want to be, you'll just respond to every invitation as if it's God sent. So some of the clutter lights, as it were, ignore them. Focus on the main buoy that you need to follow. So I've been fortunate in that I've followed the proper lights at every turn, and I've had wonderful people guiding me and coaching me, and being there for me to say, pursue this opportunity, it will work for you. For example, going to merchant banking, I had Ndato Motlana. When I did my thesis, I did my thesis on the leadership styles of, my perceived leadership styles of Ndato Motlana based on what I was reading about him. I had never worked with him. Professor Mohale Mahanyele, my father, and my former school principal, Dr. Isaac Kupega. And so when I presented this to Dr. Ndato Motlana, I said, my boy, I need you in my establishment. And hence I landed on African Merchant Bank.
2002.
That was 1996.
And then we fast forward to 2002, and you the youngest chairman.
In 2002, I remember I was at home just having dinner, and a phone rang, the landline. And I said, who is this whose timing is so bad? And I ignored the phone. It rang again, and I ignored it. And the third time, my wife said, go and pick the phone. It's just an irritant now. And the person on the other side was Minister Jeff Hadebe. was saying, Sandile, we need someone like you.
Oh.
We have read your CV. We need someone like you to lead Denel. Are you up to it? And I said, wow, what a surprise. Said, please give me your updated CV, because we're going to cabinet, not next week, the following day. If you're up to it, we've discussed it at the deployment committee of Luthuli House, and we would like to propose you. And I took the challenge in 2001, and I was chairman of Denel for 4.5 years, effectively, or 5 years rather. And it was wonderful years of leading an organization challenged with undercapitalization, challenged with strategic mispositioning. And I did the best that I could, and I'm proud of the time that I spent there.
And of course now, then you went on to found Zico. I want to talk a little bit more about you now, your personal life in our very last segment. So we're going to continue to get up close with Sandile Zungu after the break. Any suggestions, comments? My Twitter handle is @Tsepi_Mutsegua. Stay with SABC News. You're watching SABC News, DSTV channel 404, as we wrap up our conversation with Sandile Zungu. Sandile, we fast forward to today, where we see you just quickly touch on your portfolio as a whole, the different industries that you've been involved in.
You see, when I founded Zungu Investments Company, Zico, in 2002, shoestring budget, I could not afford to employ people. But I knew that the only way I could be relevant is by bringing my networks and bringing my experience and partner with people who can complement that with capital and with know-how. And I found the Fidelity Services Group, which had cleaning, security, and cash in transit. And we became partners in that. So over the years, I've built a capital base, and I've built a significant balance sheet in Zico. We are now in various services, including automotive services and some manufacturing, as well as mining, financial services, outdoor advertising, just to mention a few industries. And we've migrated from being passive investors to becoming hands-on and focusing on controlling investments where we're involved and being responsible for rands and cents and profit and loss and being able to hire and fire as we deem appropriate. So we've migrated into an investment holding company which adds value to underlying investments where we're involved.
Sandile, I can see the stability and the support that you had growing up. Where you are now, surely you continue to have a lot of support. Tell us about your family life. Who's supporting Sandile personally?
Well, I've been married for 22 years now.
Wow.
We got married in 1991 to someone that I met when I was at university. So my childhood sweetheart, really, Zodwa. She remains a pillar of strength and support. We are blessed with wonderful kids. I've got a daughter, Snenjabulo, and 3 boys, Mfundo, Lwazi, and Vuyo. They are growing up very nicely to be exactly what a proud father would be of his children. All of them combined, they provide strong support. But even within Zico, in my company, I've got wonderful people, really. A number of chartered accountants who learn running, self-starters. Of course, I will argue fairly well remunerated and rewarded.
I'm sure they are. But you know, I think it's very interesting. Let's just touch on that. You know, when you started talking about your time in post-matric at Hilton College and how you have formed relationships that continue to be there in your life now. I know they've got a very active, like, old boys organization or group or club. How important is those networks? So personal and as well as business. How important are those in becoming successful?
The networks are extremely important. When I did my MBA in '95, the content that I acquired there, possibly 95 of it are forgotten. But what remains are people that I was in the trenches with. When I went to do a program for global leadership at Harvard in 2000, I met people from all sorts of countries, Indonesia, Barbados, Denmark, and so on and so forth. The content that I got from lecturers, 95% of it is gone. I'll have to go for a refresher. But what remains are those wonderful networks that are formed with people from all over the world. Wherever I go, whatever help I need, they're only a Twitter away, they're only a Facebook away, they're only an email away.
And then there's one, of course, who is just right next to you and has been there for 22 years. How important is your role as a husband? I ask that as a young business male and looking at our marriages today. How important is it for you to be a father and a husband?
Now, the truth is that business is not easy. You could be a tough person, you could be chairing meetings, you could be dishing out instructions and taking firm decisions. But after hours, you need to have someone who will say, actually, you went about it the wrong way. Your sounding board, and someone who will be frank and whose opinion matters to you.
Okay.
And generally, it tends to be your lifetime partner.
Yes.
Whose opinion matters significantly. It tends to be your children who will tell you, Daddy, we think your radio interview, you are too harsh. We think the words you used were uncouth, were not appropriate for someone we call father. Tone down a bit. Those people, they will never mislead you. So you need those people to share perspectives with. And there's no doubt. It could be, I don't want to elevate marriage to the supreme institution. It works for me. It may not necessarily work for others. And one needs to respect that. But certainly you need that partner that will be your sounding board, that will guide you, whose opinion you will respect. And for me, my wife plays that role successfully so.
That's fantastic. In closing, what is the one thing that you guys do together for fun, to relax as a family?
We enjoy our getaway place in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands.
Nice.
That's right. It's the best investment that I think I ever made, because I'm enjoying it not just as myself, but also with my family on an ongoing basis. And it's a nice getaway, far from the main crowd. We do a lot of walking. We visit village restaurants. And we form different kind of networks. People will not ask about NAV and cash flow, who will just talk about the beds, the snow in the back, and who will tell about the fly fish activity and so on and so forth. And it's a nice way of unwinding. We don't play much sports, I must say. I'm a fitness fanatic, I'll hope. I have a gym at home. We watch TV together. We talk a lot together as husband and wife and the kids. We laugh a lot, and that's basically how we unwind.
Sandile, thank you so much. Such a refreshing view of Business Pioneer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And that's how we wrap up today's edition of Up Close. Catch us same times, weekdays, SABC News DSTV channel 404. Comments, suggestions, Twitter handle @Tsepi Motsegua. Till next time, bye-bye.